Hello, everyone, back with um, more recording of history, leaving a historical document of what it's like to grow up, what it was like to grow up in the 1970s and 80s. You always hear the 1960s and you hear a little bit Black Power movement, but nobody talks about that hole when there really was no, when the civil rights people took their pay and left, and when the Black Power people and the really what you were talking about was thoughtful people were killed and slaughtered, and the community was just left bare with no putting up no defense. And then on top of that, when we get to the 80s, the crack and the violence, which we were actually, I guess, ripe for, because um, if the Black Power movement died in the early 70s, by the time we get to the 80s, you have a decade of really no resistance, no alternative, no anything. And that's when I'm becoming a teenager. That's my childhood. Yes, the community is somewhat intact if you've been listening to the stories, but decline is happening, right? So we're going to talk about, we're still at 1082 Rogers, and we're going to talk about the Slum Lord we had. Now, my nephew, turns out, was having nosebleeds, and they found out he had lead poisoning, a lot of lead in the system. And they came and did an inspection of the apartment we were in, and they realized it was lead paint, it was lead dust on the windowsills. Even though you clean it, that's the way it was. There was also an extra room. If you know anything about brownstones in New York, there'll be a bedroom, and then there's a little room off to the side, a very small room sometimes. Some people use it as a closet, but it's a bedroom. And the landlord's son was in that room. And so we were paying rent for a room that wasn't ours. Now, the great thing about this is that they told us, don't pay any rent, save your money. He has to get his son out of there. He has to fix the apartment. He has to do these repairs. So he refused to do it. Spanish landlord we had refused to do the repairs. I remember sometimes I would go every once in a while before I started hanging with the Rick's boys and things. I would play with the landlord's son. I went down there and ate one time. It was weird. So he didn't make the repairs, but it allowed us to stay extra because we didn't have to pay rent. Because remember, we usually would get kicked out usually after a year because we never had enough money. By the time we got to the end of a yearly lease, we were always owed. So that's how we were always unstable until we went to the projects, which was the greatest thing in New York City that they destroyed, and things haven't been right since. And it won't be right until we do public housing again, but that'll come later. So the landlord didn't fix anything. Eventually, we left. Oh, and I should stop to say, my nephew's fine. He's going on to have 6 beautiful children. Brilliant brother. I was just with him, or down there with them. They're in the South not too long ago. So he's doing his thing, but he's battling the system like we all are. So the landlord didn't make the repairs, and we ended up going into a shelter from there. But at least my mother had saved a little bit, and because she wasn't paying the rent, they told her, do not pay rent to this guy, don't pay him anything, which was fine. We didn't have much to pay him anyway. So we got to stay an extra few months, but eventually we just had to leave it because, again, if it's making my nephew sick and he's not making repairs, then we have to get out of there. We can't just stay there. And I heard he lost his building, this guy. So he was a slum lord, and he should not have been a landlord. But somehow he got the money to buy the building. I mean, a lot of those buildings were bought by people, if you had $5,000 or something like that, and you can get up that much money, you could buy brownstones back in the day, in the 70s. So, and so that was it. Now, in the next video, I'm going to tell you about the shelter. But it was a shelter for battered women because we were a family. That's the only place that had apartments to take us. But I wanted to say before I go, the reason why I'm telling these is, of course, is to give you a documentation. But I've noticed that these videos have helped me to remind me of why there's so many of us nodding out on the street every time I go to the store, sleeping on benches and things like that. It reminds me of what we're going through. I also wanted to expose you to what it was like and what it is like day in and day out, the grind from when we're born to when we're dying, so that you understand the reason why some people why can't they just seem to get their stuff together? This is why. This is the daily grind and routine of it. Now, in the middle of all these stories, I have to go to school. I have to get good grades. I'm going for breakfast and lunch. Sometimes functioning hungry. But I have to be top level, because if the state gets triggered in any way, like I said with my nephew, they came in and investigated. They're going to investigate. They're in our apartments. In that time, at least it went after the landlord because it was their fault. But anything can trigger them. And they would take your child away. This is the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. We all know they were taking children and putting them in foster care for anything, any accusation. And it was hell to get them back. Easy to take your children, hell for you to get them back. So I just wanted to say that if you're looking at a group of people and you keep seeing the same type of people, they all look the same, but you're saying, damn, man, why can't they just get themselves together? Why they always high? Why they always drunk? Why they always laying out? Why they always nodding out? Then this is one of the reasons why. If you want to support the channel, support it any way you can. Donate, follow the platforms. I'm putting new stuff on platforms all the time. I found another short story that I'm redoing called People's Republic. I just did episode 1 about regions come together to dismantle the United States. And the United States is kind of in on it. The governments are in on it. And they have to dismantle the empire and reorganize it. So you could check that out on my Patreon page. I haven't published all the episodes yet, so it won't be on my Etsy shop yet. But look for that. And also on my Substack page, you can find it. I'm on a lot of platforms. I'm getting ready to put it on Novella soon. So if you are in England, look for Novelia. I'm not sure how you pronounce it, but look for that. Until next time, please be safe and take care.